Been waiting.
During question time on the 5th of April, you stated your support for the widespread use of 1080 poison to kill introduced animals such as wild dogs and foxes. Given that the welfare of all animals in New South Wales is your ministerial responsibility, irrespective of the category status imposed by humans, can you advise whether your department has considered humane or even non-lethal alternatives to 1080 baiting? And if not, does the Minister accept the scientific evidence that so-called pest species, quote unquote, are capable of experiencing pain and suffering, and that the ingestion of 1080 poison causes immense suffering to baited animals, irrespective of which animals they are? Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. President, I thank the honourable member for his question, my favourite part-time vegan, Mr. President, and I do stand by my comments that I made in relation to pest animals and 1080, and I know that my department, along with other agencies that look at alternatives to poisoning for some of these pest animals, do look at those things. Like a good bullet in the head would be good for a wild dog that has just attacked some poor defenceless lambs, or maybe just left some of the sheep that they attack with their guts hanging out to be able to suffer in pain, Mr. President. As I said to the question when it was asked previously, 1080 is licensed for use by the APVMA. It's a federal issue. But, Mr. President, don't for one second think that you're going to come in here and get me to try and start feeling sorry for some of those introduced species that inflict pain and suffering, not only to the livestock of our farmers of this state, but just as importantly, to many of the native animals that suffer at the hands of dogs and foxes and wild cats, including birds, Mr. President. That's something that you're never going to get me to change my mind on. You can waste as many questions in parliamentary question time as you want on it. It's registered for its use. Our producers and our agencies must stick within that registration. That's the agencies that make those decisions, are not agencies that report to me. That's my answer, Mr. President. Yeah. So it's one thing to come in and try to say that we should be concerned about all animals. Absolutely, we're concerned about animal welfare, Mr. President. And that is something that happens under POCTA. But like it or not, there is a different class when it comes to this, Mr. President. Those introduced pest animals that inflict the damage that they do on the economy and the environment of this state, I'm not going to apologise for 1 second our agencies and our farmers using items like 1080 to try and get rid of those pests, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Because the damage they do far outweighs any other consideration that we should all be trying to be tricked into apologising for in this House, Mr. President. My answer stands today as it did a few weeks ago. This is something that, as long as those who are responsible for the control of these pest animals stick within the licensing or the restrictions or the requirements that are attached to those products, go your hardest, Mr. President. We help those producers. We help get access to the 1080 to try and take care of these feral animals, Mr. President. I've been there. I've stood with some farmers when LLS were handing out the chicken heads that have been injected with 1080 for spread on some of their properties for the control of foxes. Mr. President, I'll take criticism that we're not doing enough in this space, and I'll take that on and I'll go back to my agencies and I'll continue to say, let's do more. I'll never come in here and say that we should do less when it comes to that, Mr. President. And I won't take this hypocritical view. Again, Mr. President, we joke about what we saw the member, the media reports before, but he walks in here with leather on his feet, wool in his suit and fish in his belly, and then tries to come in here and run an argument along his ideology, Mr. President. He's been caught out, Mr. President, to be a hypocrite. And this question, Mr. President, is a hypocritical one for someone that also should be standing up for the native animals in this state and should be concerned about them. Spend some more time on that area and I'll take your question seriously.
Supplementary question, Mr. President. Supplementary question.
The honourable member on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the Minister please elucidate on what is the research that the department is doing into the more humane and non-lethal methods that are possibly being tried? Thank you.
That's in order. That's in order.
As Mr. President, as I said in my answer, where the member asked about if the department looks at other ways to control these animals, I said absolutely they do. We have agencies that look at other types of control of these feral animals, including a bullet in the head or the chest of some of these feral animals.